Hello and welcome to the Publisher Podcast from Media Voices. I'm Peter Houston, and with the Publisher Podcast, Esther Thorpe, Chris Sutcliffe and myself are exploring the people and products powering publishing, both through these episodes and in an adjacent weekly newsletter, which you can sign up for at voices.media. Our first season of 2025 has come to an end, and if you missed any episodes, get over to voices.media to catch up. We were delighted to have Memberful as our sponsors for the season. And in this bonus episode, I'm speaking with Jen Matichuk, Memberful's Strategic Partnerships Manager. Jen and I spoke about how membership is a powerful way to diversify revenue, whether publishers need to introduce membership tiers, spoiler, they don't, how to deliver value that converts, why community matters, and why evolution and iteration are key for retention. But first I asked Jen to describe for me what Memberful does.
Memberful is a product, a tool that you can use to help simplify or start building memberships on your own site, and then also managing those memberships and growing beyond that. From paid memberships to free, you can really do it all with our product, and we try to make it as simple as possible.
Always good.
Yes.
So publishing at the moment, I mean, there's the creator economy and then there's traditional legacy publishers. Everyone is talking about the reader revenue piece, not having to rely on advertising and trying to get money at some level direct from readers. Why memberships? You know, why not, I don't know, why not just straight subscriptions? Why not charging for paid content? What's the attraction, you think, in memberships?
Yeah, I mean, I think in order to move forward and figure out what the difference between those three things are, because like some people can use those terms interchangeably, yeah. I will say, like, some person might say that their membership is a subscription and vice versa, or paying for content can be considered part of a membership or a membership. So I think there are many different ways to define those, but the overarching thought behind it is you want to diversify your revenue and you want some reliable recurring revenue to come in. So in a world where we experienced just a short 5 years ago, where a lot of ad dollars dried up when COVID hit, that created a lot of problems for folks online, where they thought they weren't going to be able to, make payroll because the ads weren't coming, or the ad dollars weren't coming in. Or just recently where Google had changed their search, and all of a sudden, people weren't getting the traffic that they were getting before. So, what can offset that, or at least create a space where you can make that recurring revenue that isn't just going to drop off suddenly because a larger tech power or a horrible disease has come and wiped all that money away for you. And that would be recurring revenue, whether that you would call that through subscription, through membership, through paid content. But we would say membership is really the word that we would define as what Memberful does.
So that idea, what you've just described there is that complete loss of control of your revenue. Whether it's this horrible disease or whether it's Google or whether it's another one of the platforms. I guess in that sense, we're looking at direct relationships. It's about actually having a relationship directly between the publisher and their audience. Is that the kind of thing that Memberful supports?
Exactly. I mean, that's one of the biggest things that comes with building out a membership. People don't want to just pay for something and continually pay for something that they don't feel is returning value beyond just a few pieces of content. Like, they're going to look at that and maybe they'll retain for 3 to 6 months. But beyond that, having that long-term retention, you have to have the connection side of it too. Somebody's not just going to pay for something over and over and over again unless it's truly, really helping them do what they need to do every single day. They're not just going to pay for it over and over and over again without some sort of connection behind it. And that's where a community piece would come in. And that's definitely where Memberful can step in, because we have direct integrations with a few different community products. So Discord and Discourse. And a lot of our folks are using those, or even using like commenting on their site, or they're building their own integrations with other platforms that they know their audience are sitting on. And they're kind of meeting their audience where they're at so that they can feel out these connections, create deeper connections, and retain these folks for longer.
I think that idea of meeting the audience where they're at is also about meeting the audience's needs.
Yeah.
Memberful is actually a Patreon company, is that right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that I'm very familiar with Patreon is this idea of tiered memberships. So I come in and I get all this stuff for free, and then I pay a bit and I get some more, and then I pay a bit more and I get more. And it's that idea that you're giving people options. For publishers, how do you think they should go about that? Almost a value-added play that they can then have these tiers of membership.
I don't think tiers are necessarily for everybody. I think that they can work really well for some people, but I do think in some ways having a simplified presentation of your membership cuts out those decision-making processes that your audience is having to make over and over again. And they're just making that decision. I'm going to join this membership. I don't have to decide between 3 different things that I can't see distinct value between each one. And then that's where the second piece comes in. If you can't figure out a way to differentiate between several different tiers or a few different tiers, that's a very obvious, glaring thing that you should probably only do one tier. And as you grow and as the membership expands and as you talk to your audience, maybe you're adding higher tiers as you go or splitting things up as you go. But in the world of publishing, I would say I want people to start small and start with one tier and then grow. But if they've already talked to their audience, they already have a clear understanding of, okay, we want a lower tier that is accessible to our maybe lower income folks that are subscribing that just want to be a part of this. We'll create this lower tier and it has access to maybe the community side of things, but it doesn't have access to the exclusive content side of things. We can start with that. And then, the second tier is we're going to have all the exclusive posts that are coming out and maybe a members only newsletter, and you have the community aspect. Maybe the top tier is closer access. So you get invited to really premium events and you get to be a part of decision making for what you're going to pursue as a publishing company next, or you get to help with, you get to sit on a board meeting or something like that, all of these different things that you can make something ultra premium happen. And then on the lower end, just so that you can include people and bring them in.
So as a publisher, that decision-making process has got to be focused on the value, right? It's not just give us more money because we love you more than the guys that give us less money. It actually has to be about value.
Yeah, it has to be about value if you're doing an exchange of goods. So they're giving you money, you're giving them content or something.
Yeah.
But there's also versions of this. Vox was one of our clients. They actually just moved up and built their entire own thing, which is really the only reason people leave Memberful, is to go build their own custom situation. But they were our client for 4 years, and they had built their entire membership on contributions. They didn't offer anything in return. They just said, okay, we're not a nonprofit, so you're not writing this off, but you contributing to us helps us keep our explanatory journalism free for everybody. And you're pushing all of this news out into the world in an increasingly volatile time online. So you're making sure that everybody can access this. And it does really well. The folks that are signing up for like monthly recurring or yearly recurring contribution plans, they retain so high because they're making that active, conscious decision that they are going to give month over month or year over year versus somebody who is paying for an exchange of goods. They are expecting something, and if they feel like that expectation hasn't been met, they're going to sit and think, okay, well, did I really get value out of this? I might cancel. And that is going to lead to lower retention rates, which is interesting because you think you'll get more people, but you might get more, you might not retain as well, and you could end up at the same as just a contribution plan. So it's deciding between like what makes sense for your audience and how you present your content.
Do you think the messaging there is important? You know, that idea that here's these 5 things I'm going to sell you versus here's this mission I'm on. Do you want to support it?
Yeah, I think that if you think about the messaging in anything, not just selling a membership, but just sales, you are basically presenting a problem to somebody and you're trying to understand if they experience that problem. And you say, okay, do you experience this problem? And that could be journalism isn't accessible by everybody. If you do, then, we have this product over here. And if you give us X amount, you're helping solve that problem, or we're solving that problem for you. And that's the basis of value-driven sales too, is you want to understand what people are dealing with and help them not deal with it.
I think the idea of value-driven sales is really interesting in a content context.
Yeah.
Journalists tend to think, oh, we wrote this story and it's really good and we're really clever, but that's not enough, right?
Sometimes it's not.
No, you've actually got to show people why it matters, and I think that's interesting. You mentioned community a couple of times, and we've only been talking for 10 minutes. I think the community piece is really, really interesting.
Yeah.
It's one of those words, right?
Buzzword.
Every publisher that you talk about is talking about community. It's probably second only to engagement. So I've got 2 questions around community. One is it as important as everyone says it is? But the other one is what makes a good, thriving, successful community?
Like you said, community is kind of turned into a buzzword these days. Like, join our community, or we have an awesome community, or, what is community? How can we truly define community, and how can we build that? And do we have one? If we have an audience, are they a community? It's unclear. And with membership, we can often say, like, your membership is your community. I don't think that's always true. I think in order to have a version of a community, it involves actually having conversations and creating that value of these people are talking amongst each other and they're talking with us, and we are creating conversation based on what they've subscribed to. So based on the content that we put out, our community is engaging with it, not just us, but with each other. And when you're building something out, that's the ultimate goal, is that you're creating a dialogue that expands beyond what you've done. That's what social media is all about. Somebody shares an article and they hope that other people are going to comment on it so they can talk about it amongst themselves. And so if you're creating that within your product, within your offering, then all these people are meeting each other, they're sharing their different opinions, and you're building out something that is building loyalty. It's building high retention, because they know that if they left that community, they wouldn't be able to have those conversations, because, you're not always going to find that on the highly algorithmic social now. You have to kind of find your niches, your communities that you can chat with. And so that retention, that loyalty, that feeling connected to something is all driven by that. And then making a good community is just continuing to encourage those connections, continuing to encourage people to connect with each other, maybe beyond online. That could also lead to events. Events have really picked up over the last few years. And I went to a conference this past year, the Media Operator Conference.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, so I think you've spoken to Jacob
With
before,
Jacob,
but
yeah.
one of his big things that he was touting was events are going to be big. Events are going to be big in the next few years because all of these companies want to build community. They want to have that. They want people to be part of what they're doing.
The online part of that is also important. I had a conversation a couple of weeks back with a lady who runs Women's Running, and they have a Patreon page. And she said the thing that absolutely supercharged their community was when Patreon put the Discord button, the Discord integration straight into Patreon. And it just became so easy for people to join their community.
Yep.
And I think as a publisher, maybe sometimes people think, oh, the community is really tough and it's really difficult and I've got to do all this technology stuff and I just don't want to go there. Have you seen that kind of Discord integration as an example? Have you seen that sort of drive things forward?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, in Memberful's checkout, it's similar with Patreon. When somebody signs up, they are then redirected to this next screen if you have a Discord integrated into your product that says join the Discord. And it's just you click the button and you're taken over there right after you check out. That's going to obviously increase people joining in for sure. And then having that online presence, if we think about the cadence of content and what you're offering and how often you're offering, I often tell folks that I work with that if you have something that's only coming out every month, that's going to leave somebody's brain pretty quickly that, okay, well, I got it last month and I'll get it sometime next month. And that's not going to make them see the value immediately. So that's not going to grab people that maybe have a shorter term attention. Then you have the weekly content, or then you have the daily content. And I would say the daily content is not you putting content out every single day. It's the community. It's the Discord. The daily content is the chatter that's happening in Discord. It's what they are going to go to every single day. It's the ping that they're going to get on their phone when they open it up and they say, okay, talking about the running magazine. Okay, I'm going to go into the Discord and I'm going to check out who all has done their morning runs. And I'm going to see what paces they were running at or whatever they're doing. And then I'm going to post what I just did this morning. And that is what is going to keep people coming back. And that's what they're going to think about when they're choosing to keep their auto renew on or to turn it off.
I think for publishers, there's that regular schedule is second nature, whether it's a monthly magazine or a weekly newsletter or whatever it is. What I don't think is second nature is that idea of encouraging other people to talk or to have conversations separate from them. And there's a little bit of a shift there in terms of instead of being that top down, we're publishing stuff for you, it's that idea of, we're the host of this conversation. Mm-hmm. And that's a shift, right? That's a different way of thinking.
It's definitely a shift. I mean, you're still, I would say, moderating the conversation, right? So it's like a panel at a conference. You're still the moderator, but other people are talking. And then there's going to be other people listening to those conversations or reading those conversations and maybe butting in here and there. But you're now the moderator of a community. And you don't have to drive the narrative the whole time. Other people can take it and bring it in a different direction. But you can create those different sections for people to talk about certain topics and, give them a jump starting topic. And they can go from there and they can really run with it.
So just letting the community actually get on with it.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we talked about at the beginning is this idea of advertising going away to some extent, and greater or lesser extents. What publishers used to be able to do was monetize drive-by traffic. So someone just shows up on their website, programmatic ad, they make some money. That's not working the same way as it used to, but we still have those kind of not necessarily drive-bys, but we have free readers.
Yep.
How do we turn free people into paid people? What's the secret to that one?
It's tough. It's tough. I would say the ultimate thing that you're trying to do, because, first of all, if they're free people that are showing up and they haven't given you any information about themselves, all you've collected is what you've collected through analytics. They haven't willingly given you anything. Those people are tough because you don't know anything about them aside from, where they maybe came from, and you can't really track them necessarily beyond that. The biggest thing is to figure out a way to get them to give you their email address so they can have access to the whole site. Getting them to start by giving you something shows that they have one foot in the door, right? So they have one foot in the door. We can grab that information that they care at least a little bit to put their email in. And then it's, understanding them beyond that. So where do a lot of these free members live on the site? And what kind of content are they consuming? Or am I putting out a survey and surveying all of these free folks and understanding what kind of content would make them convert up, and understanding, okay, well, maybe I have to present that content to them if they said they would convert up because of this. And how do I present that to them? There's a lot of different ways that you can do this, and you can get really in depth. But I think at the simplest level is that you and your newsroom or whoever you're working with, you need to put yourself in the customer's shoes first and say, okay, if I was somebody consuming content on this site, what would make me convert to paid? And think about that. And then that's going to lead you to asking questions to your audience within a survey. In a world of subscriptions, why should they pay for you? And it's going back to that value-driven offering. That's where you can start to really define what you're offering. If you come to the conclusion that you're offering this or launching this subscription purely to get more money and not to establish deeper value with your brand, your audience is going to see right through that. And maybe that's why you can't convert free to paid, because you're just saying, give us money for this thing that we actually aren't putting that much time into and we actually don't care that much about. Audiences are smarter than you think when it comes to that. They will see right through it. So you have to show them that you care deeply about this product. You're putting time and effort into building this subscription product or membership product out. It's valuable to them, and they should try it out. You could offer a free trial. You could offer coupons. There's a lot of different things that you can do to convert those free to paid. And I've seen a lot of different folks try and figure this out along the way. I do have one actually great example. I work with this company named Mythical, and they're largely, I would say, video-based. They're really big on the YouTube space. But what they do with their free members is that their most valuable piece of content, they will offer it on the free membership tier. And then once people consume it, obviously they've converted into that free membership. They're then going to feed them like 6 or 7 other pieces of content that are similar to that video they just consumed that are all locked. Or what they'll do is they'll offer them half of that specific video and say, if you want to watch the rest, you've got to move up a level or you've got to pay for this tier kind of thing. And then just getting them in the door that way.
The only way you can do that is if you understand what your audience values, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Does Memberful support that? Does it help with that in terms of analytics, or just basically helping get an idea of what the customers value?
Yeah, I think some of that comes from you talking to your audience and, figuring out, how do I survey them? Memberful doesn't have a built-in survey tool to ask current members why they are members, aside from, okay, you can ask a question in the sign up. We call it custom fields, saying like, why did you become a member? Or like, you can ask any question you want, really. But some folks are using that as, okay, we had 100 people sign up and 99 of them said they're becoming a member because of the Discord. That is pretty obvious that we should be sharing a lot about the Discord, because almost all of our members are saying that that's why they're signing up. People also use those questions as, what piece of content do you want to see? And if you're a food creator and 99 out of 100 people say they want to see chicken recipes, then you should probably build some chicken recipes, right? So it's kind of helping dictate what people want to see or why people initially signed up. And that's where you can gather initial information. But when it comes to beyond that, it's using any sort of survey tool that you can put out there and then offering value if somebody completes the survey. So, okay, we'll give you a 1-year subscription for free, or we'll put you into a draw of a 1-year free subscription, and 10 people will get that, or 1 month or whatever. And you can use Memberful's tools to build out coupons and free memberships and free trials and all of that good stuff.
So you're actually managing the value that you're delivering through Memberful in terms of what people get for free, what they pay for, what those different levels are.
Oh yeah. Yep.
I guess one of the things about this is to get started, right?
Yeah.
So if you get started and then you think, oh, wow, there's this smaller group of people that really, really want more chicken recipes, or they want special chicken recipes, or they want whatever it is that's specific to them. And you can think, okay, I can build a new tier, or I can build a new level of membership for that audience. Is that idea of evolution, is that key to this in terms of taking it forward?
I would say it's 100% key. If you're looking at, your first 6 to 12 months of membership, you're often going to grow in that first year. You're not going to have tons and tons of people churning out, and you're not necessarily going to plateau depending on how big your audience is, etc. But once you're past that year mark, you're going to have to start to think about, okay, what value did I offer when people signed up, and how can I continue to offer that value, and how can I expand on that value? And that's exactly what you're saying, like that evolution of what you've done. You can't just do the same thing over and over and over again and expect the same result forever, because the internet's expanding and there are other memberships cropping up, and there are other ways that people consume content. And there are also people that are growing in that year just as you're growing in that year. You have to continue to evolve as your audience evolves, as every other product evolves. And part of that is listening to your audience and understanding what they wanted at the beginning, maybe 2 years in, what they want at that point, and feeling very in tune with them and understanding exactly how you can keep following them as they progress. And, checking in on the current membership trends, the current trends of your publishing sector, and how other people are offering content and what they're offering, and how you can expand what you're doing in your own personal way within your subscription or your membership.
I guess in that sense, product development or product evolution is actually a key retention strategy rather than...
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
We talk about retention strategies about messaging and, we sent 10 emails and we converted, or we retained 50%. But actually, going back to what you were saying about putting the effort in, that idea of evolution is a really big deal.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's super key with retention. All you're thinking about when you're thinking about membership is, when am I going to acquire more people, and how am I going to retain my people? And it's really hard to think about both of those at the exact same time, because it requires completely different ways of thinking. It's people who are converting and people who have not converted, or people who are maybe leaving. Changing your tune between retention and acquisition is tough. But if you want to focus on retention, building out your product based on what people are already saying, but at the same time, if you're evolving your product based on those folks, there might be folks that are outside that have not converted, that, you finally launched something that they are going to convert for. And so that's one of the things, the product development, that can both help acquisition and retention at the exact same time without having to completely change your way of thinking. It's just the way that you communicate that new addition to each different group is going to affect how they acquire and how they retain.
Just kind of finally, it seems to me that the internet for a long time was just free, right?
Yeah.
Everything was free. And then over the last, 10 years maybe, 5 years certainly, we've started asking people to pay for stuff. Part of that is just putting a big gate on things and saying you can't see this unless you pay for it. So that idea of paid access. But the other side of that is actually this idea of FOMO, or
Yeah.
not necessarily FOMO in that kind of, oh, I want to be there rather than here kind of thing, but the idea of I really need that and I can't get it without paying for it. How do you build that into a publishing strategy, right? You know, you need people to see you. You got to keep the top of the funnel interesting.
Yeah.
But you got to control that access and you got to control exclusive content. Is there any kind of magic formula for that, or is that just try it and see what happens?
You know, I think with publishing, it's one of the more difficult things to understand, you know, what do I paywall and what do I keep open? Like recently, I don't even know what it was about, but somebody posted an article online and it should have been very public, and the audience across the socials have started freaking out saying, okay, this content that should be in the public eye is completely paywalled. No one can like get this exclusive breaking news outside of this. That sucks. And you don't want to be on that side of, you know, your publishing company publishes something and everybody's like, this should be very public for everybody to see. And that's probably the worry that these publishers are having. Like, are people going to rebel against me putting something up that I paywall and they believe should be free to the public to see? So that's like a very big concern for sure. You know, other, you know, content creators, a lot of the time, they're not going to have that same issue where people are going to be up in arms about a video that they put out that was a fun video. So I don't envy publishers having to make those hard choices. But it's also making sure that if you have these buckets of content that you've always posted free, that you have always done free access to, and then you suddenly take one of those buckets away, people are going to be concerned. They're going to maybe rebel against it. So it's how do you create a new bucket that you then put behind the paywall that still has value? That's something that would be really interesting to noodle on for these publishers. What's this new bucket of content and how do I put it behind the paywall? For instance, The Verge, they have a lot of free content, but they have brought in writers to specifically write very niche newsletters that are paid. And those are an extension of The Verge. And these newsletter writers are, you know, names that people know outside of The Verge. And that was their way to kick off paid memberships and bringing people into their paid membership side of things. I'm seeing other publishers do that as well. You know, they have all of their main content free, but then they have very niche specific newsletters. And that's one way to start it, thinking about that side of things.
I think the idea of niche content is, I mean, that's what a lot of publishers do, right? It's women's running, it's not all kinds of running. And I think that idea of you've got the top of funnel and it's accessible, but then you've got this star rater or you've got special training plans or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Making stuff special is really what's interesting about the whole membership idea.
Yeah, like a deeper access or a deeper level. Like you said, the running plans. Those, you're not just going to put those all out for free because you're also spending more time making them. So if you are looking at your time and saying, okay, I spent 7 hours doing this and 1 hour doing this, the 7 hours thing is probably more valuable piece that maybe I should think about paywalling versus the 1 hour thing that, you know, maybe has a buzzy headline and it's going to get more people in and doesn't necessarily make sense to go behind the paywall.
But then again, what you said about Mystical is the idea that you take that really special content and you make it free and then you show them all your other special content. And again, the word you use, noodling, I think is fantastic. I think that idea that you try something and then if it doesn't work, you try something different and you tweak it and you move it back and forward.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the big things that I tell a lot of the folks that I work with. They come in and they want this perfect recipe on how to have a successful membership. Of course, you want to launch and be successful right away, but you don't know always how your audience is going to react to the content that you're putting out. And you don't know how things are going to convert So you have to try new things until it feels like, okay, that's sticking. That feels good. People are giving me good feedback. I'm
Yeah.
going to keep that here, and I'm going to move over to this thing, and I'm going to figure out how to make this work. And guessing and checking, because, not everything you launch immediately is going to be successful. You have to give it the runway to get to the place where it can take off. And if you don't give it the runway, if you launch and you're like, okay, no one's signing up, boo, I'm just going to close this, how do you know it's ever going to work? When you're thinking about membership, the big things that you should be thinking about in your head is, okay, I want to diversify my revenue. I want to build that stronger community. I want to build reliable recurring revenue. And I want to increase my brand strength and awareness. And Memberful is a really great platform for a lot of publishers to build off of. We plug in directly with websites. You own all your own content. We just help protect it. And we're kind of sitting in the background doing all the hard stuff while you're building out a successful membership. And then we're also helping you on the side. Like, I am one of the people that can help you build your successful membership. I have a couple of other folks that have been working in memberships for a long time. So we're here to help. And this is just the start.
Thanks so much to Jen for taking the time to speak with us, and don't forget we'll have a write-up of some of the key takeaways from this interview on voices.media, or drop it into your inbox if you've signed up to the publisher newsletter. If you haven't, get over to voices.media and sign up now. If you want to know more about Memberful and its best-in-class membership solution where the content belongs to you, not to a platform, go to memberful.com/publisherpod. That's memberful.com/publisherpod to find out more and to get started with a free trial. This really is the last episode in this season of the Publisher Podcast. We'll be back soon. Until then, keep up with all things Media Voices by following us on LinkedIn and subscribing to the Publisher newsletter over on voices.media.